My name is Liz Martin, and I've been gardening on this property for 25 years. My vision for my garden has always been to create a sanctuary, especially in the backyard, but also the front yard. And I try, over the last 10 years or so, I've been trying to introduce native plants so that I can support birds and bees and pollinators. All right, we're ready to look at some of my sustainable features. This is a dark sky friendly light that points the light downward instead of outward. I learned about dark sky friendly lighting through the Go Green Wilmette webinar about dark sky friendly lighting. I saw that webinar. I really wasn't aware of how light pollution affects birds migrating and what individuals like me can do. So I replaced my existing lights, which shot the light outward, and made it go downward. This area in my alley is almost entirely volunteer plants that planted themselves here, or some of them may have planted themselves elsewhere and I moved them here, but all of these are native plants. And my favorite one is that grass over there, the big blue stem grass. I learned about letting plants self-sow themselves from my mother, who believed that if a plant wants to live somewhere, you should give it a chance. The concept of self-sowing is to, when you're weeding your yard, if you see something that you know for sure is not a weed, but you're not sure what it is, give it a little chance. If it's spreading all over the place, it's probably a weed and you should rip it out. But these plants, goldenrod likes to self-sow. This is a milkweed that's self-sowed. I think there's aster in there. This might be an aster. And so basically give it a chance. This area has had a small border along it ever since I moved here, but I've been moving the border out. And recently, in the last year, I took out a bunch of Siberian iris, which are pretty, but they are a pain in the neck, and I replaced them with native plants. In this area, I've been taking out some non-native plants that I didn't like and putting in other ones, and this is one of my favorite native plants. It's called butterfly weed. It's a type of milkweed that the butterflies love. But back there, those plants are new, so they'll be bigger next year, and they're past their flowering time. I replace plants as I feel like it, and sometimes they live and sometimes they don't, and sometimes they thrive and sometimes they don't. And my grandmother used to say that the spade is the gardener's eraser. Gardening doesn't need to be perfect, so if you plant something and it doesn't work where it is, you can always move it somewhere else. Almost all of my garden is perennial plants. An annual plant is a plant that lives its whole life in 1 year. They tend to have flowering time for the whole year, but you need to replace them, either during the season that they are the best flowering or later on. So that's expensive. Perennials over the long run are cheaper because they come back every year. That's why they're called perennials. I like that they come back, and if you plan your garden, you can pretty much always have something flowering. Buying plants, if you want a native plant, make sure that it doesn't have a name that's in quotation marks. So there'll be the, I don't remember exactly, the genus, the species, and then something with quotation marks. That means it is not native. Today I've described perennials and annuals and the benefits of having perennials in your yard. I showed you my lights, the dark sky friendly lighting that it helps reduce light pollution. And I've shown you how you can let plants move themselves where they like to live. Take a chance on a plant that you don't recognize, as long as you know for sure it's not an invasive weed. Gardening is a wonderful activity that feeds your soul, that helps the plant, helps the birds, the insects, the bees in the world, and whatever little corner of life we can help with, I think we should.